On episode 74, we're answering the question, is there such a thing as too much education? Hey everybody, what's up and welcome to the 88 Show. This is the internet's only dental show where we are talking about what matters most in marketing, in your world. I am your host, Joshua Scott, and this, stumble backwards, is episode 74, coming at you on a Monday morning. Got the crew here working hard. Man, summer's coming to a close, but not yet, it's August, right? We still got some summer. But man, kids are getting ready to go back to school. Work is happening, it's moving on. This month's featured topic, I'm excited to announce it to you and do a show on it. It's called one-to-one. And we're talking about the most important clinical procedure that you perform in a dental practice. And so today's topic, we're gonna be talking about that, but in the context of answering this question, is there such thing as too much education? So that's what today's show is about. And then come back, episode 75, we're gonna talk about specifically marketing a one-to-one dental practice and what that means, okay? So let me jump into it a little bit here. And full disclosure, I own a dental marketing company. And so we work with clients all across the country. And some of them we work with have very distinct approaches to the way they do dentistry. Some may call it neuromuscular, right? There's some where it's complete care dentistry. Still others label it bioaesthetic. And I love all these categories and these labels. And honestly, as the single practitioner practice stays around and tries to differentiate itself from corporate group practices, right? I think some of these distinctions, these labels, categories are going to become more and more important. And I see that. But at the end of the day, what it really is talking about is delivering one-to-one patient care. Okay. A recent report came out from the Institute for Healthcare Communication. There is an organization like that. And they went on record and through this report found, and I quote, "Extensive research has shown that no matter how knowledgeable a clinician might be, if he or she is not able to open good communication with the patient, he or she may be of no help." So what I find interesting here is that healthcare, there's reports that say, regardless of a clinician's clinical ability or education, if they cannot communicate effectively with the patient, they might not be of any help. And that patient's treatment and adopting preventative behaviors really comes down to that communication, that dialogue, that listening. And so what we're finding is that really effective treatment, the foundation of it is communication. It's listening, it's education. And that's it, right? And so we've got clinical ability on one side, we've got listening and education on the other side. And at the end of the day, if you're feeling like maybe there's a disconnect when you're presenting treatment to patients, and we're just not quite jiving, we're not on the same page, the vibe isn't there, maybe it has less to do with your clinical skills and maybe it's a disconnect in communication. And so let's go talk about it. I want to do some drawing. You good with that?
Let's do it.
Sweet, let's hit it. So let's talk about this. The other day I actually drew this for a client because I was trying to illustrate this point. And so what happens is we've got the clinician and your level of education and schooling and continuing education and all that. But then we also have the patient. And the patient's level of education, right? Like their dental IQ, how much they actually know about dentistry. And in the middle of that is a gap. And most of the time that's a big gap. And so we know this, there's really nothing new to this, and honestly the solution is really simple. There's two options. Either the clinician educates the patient or we expect the patient to go out and learn dentistry on their own and show up to the practice like that, right? Which we know doesn't work and it's completely unrealistic. And so, but what happens through this, because of this gap, sometimes it creates or it can create some insecurities. And so maybe you're presenting treatment and the patient seems hesitant or they seem disconnected. And we read that as maybe being unsure of our clinical abilities, maybe of our diagnosis, of the treatment plan. And so the really easy, normal route is to then think, I need to go and learn more. I need to become more confident in my abilities. And so we take a CE course, right? And so the solution seems to be more education. And so maybe you book your flight to Scottsdale to sign up for the next SPEAR course, or maybe you're gonna head to St. Petersburg and take Dawson, or maybe it's Pankey or Hornbrook or LVI or Coyce or whatever curriculum it is that you're going after and learning. That seems to be the solution. Let's treat patients with more confidence so that we'll close the gap and be able to complete treatment plans, right? The problem is that doesn't work. It actually makes it way worse, because now instead of this type of education gap, now we've got an even bigger one. So like we mentioned, there's only really two solutions here, right? We either expect the patient to learn dentistry, or as a clinician, we have to educate the patient as well. And so our assumption here of more education to help fix this is right in the sense that there needs to be education, but it doesn't have to be clinical. And look, as a whole side note here, clinical education, massively important. It's a have to, it's a must, okay? This is not a conversation of either or, this is a conversation of it's both and. As a clinician, you need to be educating yourself, but in this scenario, what's going to help most is not clinician education, it's patient education. Okay, and so what does that look like? What does patient education look like? Well, maybe you have articles explaining treatment. Maybe you have videos, whether you produce them yourself or we're using other people's products to help educate the patients. What about dialogue? I mean, what about just dialoguing with the patient and helping them understand, kind of taking them by the hand and leading them? What about listening and empathy and choreographing the new patient appointment? All those things, as we think about what are the tools that we need to help educate patients, those are the things that are going to help us. And in the end, what that does is, instead of this big gap now of even further education, we have closed the gap. Because we've taken the patient by the hand, we've led them across, we've brought them along with us, and we've educated them. And now we can call that one-to-one dentistry. Hey guys, thanks so much for being here. Episode 74. Hopefully you enjoyed the episode. Let me come back to the opening question, right? Is there such thing as too much education? For the doctor, no. The answer is no. Your continuing education always needs to increase. You need to be investing there. Is there too much education for the patient? No. And that's the thing, is we can't overlook that as well. We need to bring the patient along in the journey and make sure they're not getting left behind. So it's a both and situation. Question of the episode: what are you doing to increase your patient education skills? You ought to think about it. Guys, also down below the article for this month, you'll find some links. Take a look, let me know what you think. Next week, we'll be talking about marketing a practice that's geared this way, the one-to-one approach. And last, best place to find me online is Instagram @JoshuaScott. Hit me up there. Guys, thanks so much for being here. We'll see you on the next episode.